Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs, where you'll find real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts you need for entrepreneurship. If you've ever felt like midlife was too late to launch a business, write a book, or chase a dream, think again. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and I'm bringing you inspiring conversations and practical tips to help nudge you forward and keep growing in midlife. So let's jump in. All right. Well, I have Lynn Harris with me today on Midlife Women Entrepreneurs. Lynn, you and I met through the podcast. You bring comedy to people's lives, and I cannot wait for you to share your story, because when we jumped on that pre-call, I just thought it was such a unique thing that you were doing, and it's so amazing. I'm going to hand the floor over to you. Give us a little bit of a backstory, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. And first of all, thank you so much for having me. Thrilled to be here. I am the founder of Gold Comedy, which is the comedy school and professional network and content studio where women and, as we like to say, others, kind of outside the comedy norm, are able to join a powerful community and make funny stuff that gets seen on stages and screens of all types and sizes. And how I came to that, we'll get into the details, but my background is in not just stand-up and not just storytelling, but also in comedy, at the intersection of comedy and social justice and culture change. So I have been what some call a culture change strategist or culture change producer, which we can talk about. I'm a longtime award-winning journalist and author. And in the mix of comedy and journalism and culture change, I've been able to change laws and conversations everywhere from Capitol Hill to NASCAR. So I'm continuing to use comedy as a kind of a power tool to both support individuals in, nailing their showbiz dreams or getting all the other things that comedy can provide in your life, and also to help change culture and perceptions of women, and I'll go so far as to say the structures of power, because comedy can do that.
What was the spark that inspired you to start this Gold Comedy, especially at a time when most people were sort of slowing down? You're a midlife woman. A lot of women might think it's too late to start something, but you're like, nope, I'm going to get going and I'm going to start this Gold Comedy. What happens when I enter into your community?
Sure. Yeah, I got the idea in my head really in my late 40s as a way to bring together all of the stuff that I love, which loosely speaking is comedy and smashing the patriarchy. And which, as I said, I'd been doing in one way or another all my life. And I also love community. We all know that we're the most powerful and successful and fulfilled when we're in communities. I just kind of started thinking about what if I threw all those things into a bowl, and stirred it up, what would happen? And after a whole bunch of R&D, where we landed, snipping a lot of the story out, where I landed was, even before the pandemic, I knew that I wanted to create an online space for reach and breadth and ease, and for finding the people who weren't already in New York, LA, Chicago. And I landed on our core audience, which is women and other, primarily women, but certainly non-binary creators. And as we say, others, people outside the comedy norm who are frustrated with the fact that dudes still dominate and gatekeep the way comedy is produced. And we can get into that too. So I thought, well, a solution could be, let's get more women into it. So I thought, what if I put all of those things into a bowl and stirred? What if I put in community? What if I put in helping women and those outside the norm succeed in comedy in a business that is still dominated by dudes, even very nice dudes, but it's the culture and the gatekeeping is still done by dudes. And what if I made it easier for women to succeed in comedy? What if I was able to help more comedy produced by women get out into the world? Not only would that be great for the careers and creative side hustles for those people, but it would also make comedy better, and it would also make the world a better place, make the world a funnier place, and help shift perceptions of who gets to tell jokes, who has that power. That's where the culture change piece comes in. So there's the entrepreneurial piece, of course, but then there's the vision and the culture change piece that are all mixed together. And so when we succeed as a business, we succeed the culture change and the vision that we're striving for.
Okay, that's great. And so when you and I were chatting, you told me as people walk through the comedy or the Gold Comedy door of the community, it isn't just about me wanting to become stand-up. So not everybody's end goal is to come to your community to become a stand-up comedian. What they're trying to do is maybe even just learn how to incorporate comedy more into their lives, correct?
Yes. So first of all, we address and include all types of what one today calls comedy. So that certainly includes stand-up. It also includes, all the old stuff, stand-up, sketch, storytelling, improv, all the stuff that is, here to stay that we love. So all those different types of comedy. But to your point, and so our core audience is people who are very serious about doing those things in the world, but serious takes different forms. So what I mean is we have, for example, a woman named Rocky who is a grandmother. She's on the young side of grandmother in North Carolina. She's a retired high school art teacher and also firefighter, turns out retired. And she decided that she was going to do stand-up. And she kind of picked it up sort of for fun because she knew she was funny and she wanted that outlet. And cut to now Rocky she's touring all over North Carolina and the South, and she's bringing the solo show that she created through Gold to a prestigious festival in New York in September. So you kind of never know what's going to happen. We also have a lot of women who I'll call mid-career, who are in their 40s, 50s, let's say, who have a story that's on their heart to tell. And they are not necessarily people who are experienced in comedy or certainly in TV writing. They may be people who have some media experience, but maybe not. And they're already very accomplished in their own worlds. But they have this idea that needs to come out of their head, their heart, the drawer, wherever it is. And so the instructor for the course, Ryan Cunningham, who, no big deal, was a producer on Broad City, Search Party, Inside Amy Schumer, leads them through a very high level sequence where that idea goes from, they might have a pilot written, who knows, but they might just have an idea that they don't know what to do with. And in 12 weeks, with Ryan's and the help of the classmates, that idea turns into a completed, polished, history standard pitch that is ready to go to development executives, festival, or it sets them up to write the pilot to match. And these are women who are not quitting their day jobs, that are not sort of running away to join the circus. These are women who they might be in media already, they might not, but they're really serious about getting this thing done and made. So we have someone who's a medical doctor who had an idea for a show that is based on her experience and expertise, someone who's a dentist, similar, someone who is a sleep expert who is telling the story of her own sleep disorder that she wants to get out there, but in a sort of fun, palatable way. So it's really something. And our instructor, Ryan, always says that she loves teaching this class for many reasons, for the doors it opens, for the new voices and faces that it stands to put out there, but also because she loves teaching women our age because we're so serious and like we get done.
Exactly. What I was going to ask you is, so this 12-week, I'm intrigued now. So this 12-week program, I have an idea. Maybe it's to just even do a keynote. Does it have to be a show, or?
We have many people do pitch episodic TV shows. I just saw the pitches from the last class there. People have done podcasts. People have done unscripted series. I think for a keynote, we've got a different class for that one. We have another super duper expert named Iris Barr, who you may, if you see her picture, recognize from Curb Your Enthusiasm and Hacks, who is, and this is pretty rare, who is an expert in developing solo shows, which is what she does with our people, like she did with Rocky, who I mentioned before. And she also brings a similar expertise to people who want to develop their personal story into their keynote for their brand. She does that privately, and she can do it. That's something you can access through us also. So that would be, I would say that's a little different because it's a keynote, not a pitch.
Right.
But you got that.
I'm like, okay, note to self. So going back to that 12-week pitch, you've got these dentists, these doctors, you've got all these sort of different dimensions of people coming in, and what do you feel gives them the idea? Because my hope is that on this podcast, everybody's going to be sparked with some sort of thought. And they're going to go, okay, I'm going to reach out to Lynn now because, wow, she got me thinking. Maybe I do have an idea. So what's giving them the courage to step forward?
Yeah. First of all, everyone has them. Everyone has them. Everyone has today, everyone listening is going to have something pass through their mind that it could be a TV show. Everybody. And it may just be like your nutty family, or, it may be something about an ancestor. It may just be a random idea that puts two conflicting elements of your life together. Like, what if it was, what if I was a psychotherapist, but I only worked on the subway? I don't know. I made that up. And so the big difference, and this is going to sound very simple, but one of the big differences that one of the main things that gets people into the class, instead of just going, is noticing that you're noticing your ideas. Because, how many of us have been like, oh my God, that should be a TV show? And like probably 8 times out of 10, maybe it shouldn't. It's just something that's like in and of itself, like a great anecdote or something. It's whatever it is, it's good. It might not be a TV show, but probably 2 times out of 10, it might be an awesome TV show or film or podcast or whatever it might be. And the trick is not to just be like, yeah, wouldn't it? And then forget that you had that idea. So the trick is to write it down. That's it. Those are the 3. If anyone remembers anything from this podcast, it's write this down. Everyone is familiar with the idea of a gratitude journal. I think that people should have a notebook where you just write down stuff that you notice during your day that could be funny. Doesn't have to be funny yet. It just could be funny. Like the things that annoy you that whoever it is you live with does around the house. I don't know, one particular thing. Like, it doesn't have to be like a fully formed joke. It certainly doesn't have to be a show idea. But it's just noticing that it helps train you to notice that you're noticing and to also write stuff down. The people who show up in the class are the people who really have that one thing, whether they've practiced noticing that they're noticing or not, that they can't get out of their heads, that they keep thinking, I should really, one of these days I'll be fulfilled creatively when those things we say to ourselves. And for whatever reason, when presented with this opportunity, they're like, okay, we do have things happen in real life, but everything we've talked about right now is accessible online.
So, everything you're saying, Lynn, just makes me think, even just taking something from one of your Gold Comedy programs to help me become a better storyteller, but even just be more dynamic in a group where I think sometimes we can go into a function and, well, okay, I'm just going to use myself as an example. I consider myself fairly extroverted, but when it comes to me getting into a crowd, I turn into this total introvert. And I know that so many times, I think I've had a conversation with somebody and they were such a good storyteller. They were engaging. They had this dynamic about them that I think that as women in midlife, we start to shrink a little as well. We're not as seen as we used to be when we were younger. And so talk a little bit about that. How does even just showing up at the Gold Comedy help me do that?
So one thing, I'm going to manage expectations for everyone. It does. The answer is that it does. And the great news is you don't have to change who you already are. You don't have to be, quote unquote, more outgoing, or I think your word was dynamic. You don't actually have to be more dynamic or less X or more Y. You don't have to take on a new vibe. You don't have to become a new person. It's part of the process that we go through in our stand-up bootcamp class. And again, we have tons of things besides stand-up, but we always recommend that you take our stand-up bootcamp class, and you're about to see why, is going through and kind of holding up a mirror. And it's really, a funhouse mirror. It's a goofy mirror, but holding up a mirror to yourself and saying, like, well, what is my persona? What does my naturally give? Like, what is my persona? And, and we don't ever say, okay, your persona is shy. Well, now you got to be more confident, queen. Like, we don't say that. Okay, your persona is shy. That's what we're going to work with. That's who you are as a comic. And so you don't have to all of a sudden, like, be loud on stage if your vibe is more quiet. And by on stage, I'm also including, a Zoom square. It's just actually being like, no, that's who I am. And I think, and just to sort of flip something on its head a little bit, it's true that when you meet someone, if they're if they're dynamic or they tell a great story, whatever it is, of course that makes them memorable. But I guarantee you that there are so many times that you remember someone because you felt heard by them, because it wasn't about how they were talking or how showy they were or how hilarious they were or how dynamic. It's because they were listening to you and you felt heard, and that's why you felt connected to them. So this is not mathematical, but half of it is of being a comedian of any sort is reading the room, and that's listening and knowing when to respond and knowing when not to respond, knowing how much to say, how little to say, and when. So so that's a lot. That's something that a lot of people discover too. Like, oh wait, I don't have to, I don't have to do cartwheels on stage. You mean sometimes a punchline is just a like a raising my eyebrow? And so it really just tells you, no, you already have whatever it takes. We're just going to give you some training and focus and hand you some mechanics and hand you some tools, and you got to practice. But it's not about changing who you are. It's about being kind of 1.3 times who you already are.
I love that. So, Lynn, couple of things. One is let's back up a little bit and let's talk about your comedy career, like your journey and how you got here. And then I also, while you're telling that story, you were sort of sprinkling some pretty great names that are part of your gold comedy community. So sprinkle those in too, because I think it's important that people understand where you actually came from.
Sure. Okay, I'll just name check. I'll just brag first and name check.
Do it. Just name drop. You've got full permission.
Yeah. Rachel Dratch is one of our advisors, SNL alum Rachel Dratch. She's one of our advisors. She dispenses love and wisdom to our sketch teams. We have teams over the years. We've had anywhere from 6 to 12 teams making digital sketch content, all women and non-binary creators, unlike Saturday Night Live, who has 2 sketch teams, and we love them, but they're all white dudes. And we have past our paywall, we have a celebrity and pro speaker series where we've had guests from, speaking of Rachel Bloom, Margaret Cho, Patty Harrison, Ashley Nicole Black from a Black Lady sketch show. I know I'm from Paula Pell. If you've seen Girls Five Abbey, you've seen Paula Pell. And so it's a very high level network, which we use to our advantage. And we like to introduce people to people, but it's also not intimidating. So at all, we're really nice. So I want you to be like impressed, but not intimidated. And I always just gravitated toward comedy. I wish I had a great story about my big comedy dreams. It was just always like a tractor beam in my life that I was drawn towards, starting with, watching TV with my parents, watching Laugh-In and MASH and the Carol Burnett Show, obviously. And I Love Lucy and the Muppet Show. And laughter was just like a sound in our house that was like was part of the soundtrack. And so, which is important if you're an only child, you need some noise, and which I was and am. And so that's what I gravitated toward. In high school, I auditioned to play the funny one in the musical. And, I was the one who masterminded a lot of the sketches that my singing group did. It's just like where the magnet was drawing me. And then I took a stand-up class after college and in Boston and never looked back. And I didn't work that hard at stand-up. I worked hard enough to be able to do it, but my goal for doing stand-up was to do stand-up. I didn't really care about becoming the next whoever. I just enjoyed stand-up, and I did a lot of comedy related things so that I was always scratching the itch in some way, but there was no one clear comedy goal that I lived and died by. And that kind of blended into my passion for social justice and social change and my belief in the power of culture change. And that's sort of where it all kind of started. All the tributaries started to come together and bring me toward where I am now.
Amazing. It's such a good story too. Do you have a surprising collaboration or creative project that really kind of emerged from that community?
Yes. I don't know if it's surprising. It's just awesome. And there is some surprise just in terms of, I guess, there's some nerdy surprise here, which I'll explain. One thing that has emerged is, two really, is that you may not know, fun fact, maybe it's not a secret, that TV shows like Insecure, Broad City, Drunk History, and a few others started as web series. And so now it's like fancily formed. It's called mid-form content. But it's mid-form content is web series. And one of our sketch teams a couple of years ago created a web series. That was what they were tasked with doing, even though they were technically a sketch team, doesn't matter. They created a web series called Late Bloomers that is, first of all, hilarious. And second of all, brought together creatives who would not have been together but for having been formed by us, a whole bunch of different types of people from all over the place. And that because of the way technology and Hollywood, in quotes, are evolving, you can now watch their web series on Fox Soul. It's basically cable, but online. And they, in a way, that kind of cut out the middleman. There's a web series, and you can look it up. It's called Rat Czar, CZAR, Rat Czar, the web series it was an idea that came out of the pitching class that we talked about. And that person teamed up with a writer from Gold. They wrote the web series and they produced the entire web series. Rachel Dratch does a cameo, Countess Luann does a cameo, and it's a fictionalized version of New York City really has a rat czar who's tasked with mitigating the rats. So that it is fully produced and done, and they crewed up with people from Gold because we have a lot of production nerds who, they did the sound and the, director of photography, sound, the script person, all those things were largely from the Gold community. And they shot it in New York last summer. And that's what we're like, those two aren't like exceptions. Like that's what we're really leaning into because we can do it. We can help, we can support you in not just having an idea, not just creating a pitch, but actually making it a thing. Rachel Dratch in a giant rat costume. This is, we can deliver that to you if you watch the web series.
Lynn, I go to the website goldcomedy.com, correct? Yes. What am I going to see there? What kind of programs?
Sure. So our website itself, the website will offer you a lot of freemium, as they say, content on our resources page, which is like our magazine, our blog, which has tons of how-tos around all types of comedy and creativity, tons of Q&As with people in the comedy world, including celebrities, and just tons of actionable stuff. That's all free. You'll also be able to find out about our classes. Once you join the community behind the magical paywall, you actually get unlimited access to our normal rotation of or regular rotation of classes, which include all the types of comedy I mentioned, but also include writing a web series. We're bringing in acting for comedy. We're bringing in writing for late night. We're bringing in how to MC a show, not just how to do stand-up, but how to be the MC, which is, by the way, great for literally anybody who is ever up talking in front of people. And so all the classes are included. All those classes are included. You don't pay anything extra. You can take a class over and over, and you'll see it looks like it's it's its own online space. So you'll see what are the other members up to. There'll be chats, there'll be posts, there'll be questions, there'll be polls, and the AI in the back will kind of introduce you to people who do things like you, so you can find other people, whether they live near you or they're also curious about TV writing or whatever. So the tech kind of supports it's not just that like we give you a lot of stuff, it's that the tech supports the building of community and the network that will help you realize your goals.
Okay, well, I love it. So how would somebody get a hold of you, Lynn?
If you email me or DM me on Instagram and you tell me you heard me on this podcast, we'll get you a discount of some kind. It depends on what you want to do. We have different programs and premium classes, but we'll make sure that you get the Lynette discount.
Okay.
Email me or DM me. And my email is just Lynn, Lynn, at goldcomedy.com. And Instagram is goldcomedy or Lynn Harris. It's really hard not to find us.
I think everybody should dip their toe for sure. So thank you for joining me today, Lynn.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Hey, it's Lynette. Thanks for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And if there's somebody out there that you think could benefit from the episode, give it a share. Midlife is your time, so go get it.